So thank you so much for joining our 2020 High School Registered Apprenticeship webinar series entitled Best Practices. We will be having great presenters today talking to us about the best practices of growing high school registered apprenticeship programs in Iowa. So if you would introduce yourself in the chat box with your name and your organization. And then if you have any questions to ask, please enter them in the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting down below. A recording of our webinar will be added to futurereadyowa.gov and earnandlearniowa.gov at the completion of this webinar series today. So please be looking for additional information on our Earn and Learn and futurereadyowa.gov sites later on this month. So today we have some great presenters from across the state. We have Jennifer Boyd with Davenport High School, Lowell Ernst from the Career Academy of Pella, Dr. Kristen Rickey and Seth Harms from West Delaware County Community School District. Then we'll open it up for questions and answers from all of the attendees today. And then we'll close out by showing you where to find all the webinar series presentations from earlier this year. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Boyd to kick us off with some best practices from Davenport Community School District.
Great, thanks so much, Amy. So we're going to talk about what we've done in Davenport. We're in our second year of our welding apprenticeship. We're in the first year of our electronic systems technician apprenticeship, and we are just about to get a software engineer apprenticeship up and running. So we're moving along, and we've got a couple of takeaways. Go ahead, Amy. I'm the Career Tech Ed Curriculum Specialist for Davenport Schools. So I support our apprenticeships. I also have a pretty wonderful team. Our teachers are amazing supporters as well as Lauren Hargrave. She's our work-based learning coordinator, who has been an integral part of all of this process as well. You can go ahead. So the first promising practice would be to speak your partner's language. This is kind of this new era of education and business. I don't know that in my 15 years in education, I've ever seen such a close connection between what we're doing in our education and what our businesses are looking for and that kind of partnership. You can go to that next slide. Apprenticeships are driven by industry. They only exist if you have industry partners that have a place to put your students, because you can create something in your system all day, but if you don't have anywhere to go to with those kids, the apprenticeship can't exist. So one of the first pieces about this is you have to listen to what your partners are saying. We've gone around and around about what kind of training they need, what do they need to be hireable, but you've got to be able to listen to what they actually want. The apprenticeship is there. I mean, it's driven by them. It's what they need. So ensuring that you are creating something that is actually going to be utilized and supported by your industry is key. You have to step a little bit away from education speak. We in the education world, we have our own language, right? We have all of the acronyms under the sun. And a lot of times when we start getting into some of those conversations about standards or, about those different pieces, our partners don't always know what we're talking about. And one of the other things is we always refer to our apprentices as students and kind of just shifting that conversation. They're apprentices, kind of separating them from that total education world that we all live in. The next thing, focus on the benefits for the employers. I've been to a couple of conferences where I've gone into meetings about how do you improve partnerships, and it's coming at it from a non-educational angle, coming at it from an employer angle. They want people in their company to work so that they can be more productive and more successful as an industry. So we have to look at those benefits for the employers. It's not just, of course we're in it for our students. We want them to be successful, but why should the employer get involved? Why should they be on board? And, we've kind of refined that over here in Davenport. And that return on investment, you're going to put in the time, you're going to have another, person in your facility that's helping with the workload. It'll be a little bit of training on the front end, but that investment over the years is going to be huge as you build your own pipeline with your carefully selected group of, students or apprentices that you want to bring in. So ensuring that you are communicating with your industry partners in a language that they understand is key. You can go ahead. The next one that I've got is a management system. The apprenticeship, as soon as you start adding apprenticeships, you start adding apprentices, think there's a lot of moving parts. And so in Davenport, we've created a couple of systems to really streamline all of this. You can go to the next slide. And this slide has a lot of links in it. I'm going to go ahead and that is the hyperlink in the chat to this actual presentation if you wanted to see any of these links. But, we look in Davenport schools and in a lot of education, there's movement, right? You have somebody that champions a program and then they leave for a different position and the program goes away. And so one thing that we have always talked about is how do we sustain this? How do we ensure that regardless of who's sitting at this desk, that this program continues? So one of the things that we've done is we've tried to create very clear documentation and processes to make sure everybody knows exactly what's happening and that system will endure regardless of any changes. So one of the big pieces is that recruitment angle. And we have different ways that we are recruiting those different partners. So we have very specific industry recruitment flyers where it's really focused on what are the benefits for you if you decide to be in our apprenticeship and support our students. We also have a student recruitment flyer, and that one really talks about what are you going to do? What are you going to earn? How can you get started? And it's just pretty clear cut, pretty basic. And then the additional stakeholders, let me see here. I think I linked it to our website. Yep. So we created our own CTE website, and this is for our parents. It's for our students. It's for our teachers, our CTE student ambassadors. It's kind of a one-stop shop, but they can find information there as well. And it speaks a little bit different language, the different pieces of recruitment, but recruitment is a major component to program management. If you're not recruiting and adding more partners or more students, your apprenticeship is not going to last. The second thing that we really found out, as we're working with, we had multiple partners with our welding apprenticeship. It wasn't just one industry partner we were working with. And so we found and then Lauren and myself, we work in the district office and we work with Mr. Zinn, who's our instructor, and he's over at West High School, and he was connecting with the kids, and it was just kind of all over the place what was going on. So we put together an apprenticeship handbook that goes out to every single one of our apprentices, their parents, our partners have it, as well as everybody in our district. In our handbook, we really lay out everybody's role. We have our timelines where everything happens. We had, there's students in our school. So what if there's a snow day? What do we do? And so we outlined all of that. If there's an early dismissal, here's what happens. If we are in a professional development, students can work. So we went through and kind of, laid all of that out for everybody to be on that same page. There's also, information about, well, after you finish your apprenticeship, where do you go? And it's been very helpful for our apprentices and our partners to just all be aware of what the opportunities are, what the expectations are, and who they need to go to for different reasons. So that's been a huge benefit. We've taken the exact same model and we've just copied it and changed it to the EST, and we're copying it. We'll change it to the engineer. But that's been kind of our grounding document where we go if we need details about anything or we need to make sure we're being clear. The last piece about our program management is the tracking of our apprentices. We visited Pella years ago, which is when we kind of, looked at that model to duplicate here. And your tracking system was phenomenal. I mean, and I'm sure you'll talk about that. And so we tried to find one that we could do, for us for in-house. And one of the things that the tracking system is great on, you can see a little snip of it down there, but we track their competencies, we track their hours, their coursework, as well as their evaluations as they're received. We have different tabs on the bottom. So when we get those evaluations from the employer, we have it all in one place. What we can do by creating this tracking system is we can monitor each of our apprentices to see where they need additional supports. If they're not finishing classes, if there's a competency that they're specifically struggling with, or if their evaluations are showing us trends, we can go and support that specific apprentice and make sure that they've got what they need. Also with the transferring, our 5 original apprentices have all transferred different businesses within the first year. And so getting that transfer can be difficult if you don't have a system set up to monitor it and easily track it and share with the next group. So we were able to easily transfer our apprentices between companies with very little challenge for our industry partners or for ourselves. It also just keeps us current on all of our apprentices. I know we report with grants, we report, and we need to give updates, and we need to know what's going on. It's a great place to pull, data from, or information, comments from the evaluations about how the students are doing. It's been very helpful. And of course, all credit for all of this goes to Lauren Hargrave, our work-based learning coordinator. She's developed it, and she really manages that whole system. So some sort of a tracking system, whether you do it on your own or you have something through the AEA, I feel is critical for maintenance of your programs as you add more and more students. You can jump to the next one. All right, so there's Mr. Zinn. He's our welding instructor here in Davenport. And if he said earlier today, if he knows how often I've used that picture, he's gonna really regret me taking that. So the third thing is empower the teachers. Go ahead and jump to the next slide. Teachers are the champions of these apprenticeships. Our teachers are the ones that have been teaching and growing these programs. And the only way that they will be successful if those teachers feel like they are truly a part of the development of that program and the success of that program. So one of the key pieces to that is listen to their perspective on approaches. I don't try to tell Mr. Zinn what to do or how to do it. I listen to what he says, and we talk through it, and we figure out the best approach. He knows those kids inside and out. He knows his craft inside and out, and he knows the best way that we're going to be able to help them be successful. So listening to, the teacher's approach, it may not always be the one you think is the best. It may not always be the one that seems the most logical, but sometimes they've got that insight that is going to make this program go from, manageable and doing okay to just truly tremendous. So the second is provide additional time and or funding for that extra work. With a lot of our grants that we've received, we have been able to put in place stipends or hourly for the time it takes outside of the day to go recruit partners, to go check on the kids, to do all of that kind of paperwork. And that's been fantastic. If we aren't able to act, we're going to try to build something in as we continue, because doing this is a lot extra on our teachers who already have a huge plate that they are trying to manage. So finding a way to, recognize the work that they're putting in is a great way to keep that engagement within the apprenticeship. The third piece of this, make sure your leadership is aware of the work that's being done with your apprenticeship, who the drivers of it are, the teachers, and that they are supportive. Mr. Zinn was on a webinar last month, I believe, with Amy as well, and with the STEM group. And after the webinar was done, the recording was out, we put it into an email, we sent it to our school board, to all of our associate superintendents, the superintendent, everybody, the principals. We wanted everybody to know what's happening and that recognition, which is critical if you want to sustain a program, especially amidst all the funding issues that some districts are dealing with. All right, you can go to the next one. And sorry, I meant to delete that bottom part, but the last one is reflect, improve, and refine. Go ahead to the next slide. So our programs are constantly changing and evolving. And this is an example of it. This is some footage that we put together for the Iowa Workforce Development of our apprentices on site to use for National Apprenticeship Week. And we pulled in our media arts folks from down the hall. They came in and actually did the recording for us, which was pretty cool. But the programs are evolving, and there's awareness that's out there, and there's so many great models around the state. So one of the things is ask for feedback from partners, from other folks around the state. I just sent an email to 5 different registered apprenticeship folks this morning asking for some information. So ask for some feedback, especially from those partners, and use it. We found out they wanted our kids to have stronger blueprint reading. They wanted them to have more professional skills where they're able to present and have conversations with employees. So we went back and we looked at our course offerings. We looked at what was embedded, and we added pieces into that to meet that need. Bring the partners together regularly to discuss progress and updates. We just have our partners come together. We aim for 3 times a year. We do it in a normal year. We would do it at the end of summer as school gets started, right before the holiday or after the holiday, and then right before summer. before we start our next crew. So bringing them together, they all know each other. We talk about how are the apprentices doing, what kind of feedback are we getting, and where are the areas that we need to evolve, and then they bring us things as well. So that's been really critical to keep our everybody feeling like their input is valued. We're able to keep track and maintain that relationship. Analyze your enrollments, student progress, and completions. If there's something that's going on where you're not getting students in the program or they're not completing, finding ways to address those obstacles if they exist. Having that tracking of your students is critical. We are currently looking at, we are looking at our completers, and we're trying to make some changes to our related training pieces, because we're finding that a lot of our students aren't taking that next step and finishing some of the coursework that we built in. So constantly being aware of what's going on and finding ways to address some of those obstacles if they are there. Connect with other teams and spread the word. Connecting with other teams, we in the Quad Cities, we have a Quad City Regional Youth Apprenticeship Consortium with all of our different cities, both on Illinois and the Iowa side, where we come together, we talk about what's happening, we talk about current apprenticeships we are either in the process of pursuing or ones that we are interested in exploring. And then we come together as a Quad City team for anybody that's interested. With our software engineer meetings that we've been having, we have North Scott involved, we have Rock Island, Bettendorf, PV, anybody that is interested, they come to the meeting and we all work together to kind of establish something in our region. So connecting with other teams, whether it be locally, whether it be across the state, is a great way to ensure that your program, is sustainable. And spread the word. We love sharing information about all of our programs. We love sharing all of our documents. Everything you'll see is on Google Docs. You can make a good copy of it and just use it. We are happy to share the word because this is such a great program for our students, and we are seeing those results right now. And I think, Amy, that's, yep, that last one.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for giving us some great examples of how Davenport is putting high school registered apprenticeship programs to great use. Please write down Jennifer's email address and send her all the questions that you have, because she's a great resource and ally to have with building your registered apprenticeship program. Well, now we're going to jump ahead to Lowell Ernst. He is with the Career Academy of Pella. Lowell, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And thanks, Jen. That was really interesting as far as all the things and the progress you guys have made. It's awesome. What we wanted to talk a little bit about today is this idea that we were faced with in a group here not too long ago. If you look at the quote, that's from the president of Central College here in town, actually said, if we could only develop our workforce from our community, what would we do differently? We actually have the blessing of having almost as many jobs as we have residents of the town of Pella, but that's also a curse, because if you can't keep those jobs full, then you can't keep your businesses operating. And so we started looking at, what do we look at differently all the way through the system, not only in our apprenticeships, but leading into those. So if you go ahead and go to the next slide. What we did to take a look at then was our current state, kind of in this continuous improvement model. Every one of our employers said, our biggest limitation, we're all planning on expanding, but maybe not here because we can't find enough employees. And so that was a big deal for us, is we want to grow as a community, but we can't unless they do. What we found is that we had an awful lot of our students who were looking for great jobs that were leaving our community to go find them elsewhere. And if we're going to continue to feed our businesses and feed our local community growth, we had to figure out a way through that. And one of the problems that exist in that is you can't select a career unless you know it exists in the first place. And there are a lot of great careers, especially in manufacturing, that our students have never heard of. And it's kind of ironic when you start talking to students about what do their parents do who work in the factories in town. Many of them have no idea. And so that's what we really wanted to try and fix. So we looked at that in 4 stages. How can we look at what do we do to make students aware of the careers? What chances do they get to actually explore them? So before they get to that work-based experience, be it apprenticeships, internships, long-term employment opportunities, what do they have to feed them into that? And then once they're in there, when you ask a student, what do you want to do for a living? They don't pick entry-level jobs. They pick the job that leads to. And so they sometimes have to understand that in order to get to that, there are stages of life that cause you to get to that next stage that you really want to do. So what do I have as a pathway for my personal growth opportunities in this employment? So we can go to the next slide. So we started looking at what would the ideal state be. The ideal state would be that on a frequent basis, there are partnerships where education leaders, employers, and community leaders are all sitting down at the same table, and they're the decision makers. because what we don't want to do is pursue something that we think is a great idea, only to find out that we put a lot of time and effort into something that nobody really wanted in the first place. We actually have an example of that. We had a few people that came to us and said, what if we had kind of a countywide DMAC degree, Des Moines Area Community College degree that people could get that would allow them to just have jobs in the factories. So we went to work, we built it, and nobody wanted to take it. And so that's one of those times when we figure out we need to figure out a different way to do this so we're not wasting efforts. So we wanted to put those decision makers at the table, but sometimes the decision makers aren't the developers. So once it's been decided that we're going to do this and they hand it off to that developer to make it happen, do they have a clear communication link between the two? And so we wanted to try and make sure we fix that in our ideal state. And the other part is when we start looking at students who are going to come out of that back end of that pipeline as actual employees, there are a whole bunch that decide along the way, this isn't for me, or there's another thing I could pursue. And that's great because on the education side, that's what we want to happen. But back to that return on investment Jeff talked about, that's not what the employers are looking for. They're looking for employees. And so we have to fill that pipeline with a lot of people and a lot of students in the beginning to come out on the other end with the employees that they need in the first place. So we can go to the next slide. So that led us to the development of a program that we're calling the Work Smart Connector program. And Work Smart Connector really works through those 4 phases that we just looked at here in a moment, and we'll flesh those out in just a moment. But we were able, through our workforce development and some other grant opportunities, to hire a regional coordinator. So being a town of about 10,000 people, we wanted to encompass the entire area into this program, which amounts to 6 different school districts where we're trying to get to work together into one program. So that housing, or that kind of overall umbrella, is the Work Smart Connector program. And that is facilitated by a lady by the name of Terry Voss. And Terry's been on several different things, so many of you may have seen her before, but she's actually come out of industry now to work specifically for this program and kind of move this all forward. So there'll be some great things I think that you'll start to see here soon that can be kind of replicated across our state that she is helping to develop in this program. So we go to the next slide, we'll kind of start to break this apart. So what the Work Smart Connector program does is it starts with this funnel that we've talked about, with this broad career visibility at the early levels. So what are all the awareness activities that we can put students into? So that kind of funnels down into ways where they get the chance to explore those different careers that they think they might be interested in. So by the time we get to the apprenticeship pathways, they've had some real experiences that say, yeah, that's why I want to do this, because I've seen this, I've got a chance to mess with it a little bit, and it looks really exciting, and I want to do this for a living. So once they get into those apprenticeship programs or internship programs, we can then get to that full-time employment while they're still in school, and then give the opportunity to say, and here's your career pathway after that. Because what the businesses have really talked to us about is, we want that employee here 3 years from now. What's our retention rate going to look like? So we start to look at the metrics of what it means to be successful in this program. It's because I put this effort, energy, and investment into this employee, and they're still here. Because that's one of the things that they fear is, we'll do all of this just to allow them to take off anyway. And that's what we're trying to avoid by doing that. So we go to the next slide. So Work Smart Connector really looks somewhat like this. If you can hit that one more time, I think there's one more box that'll fill in the bottom. There we go, thank you. So if we look at that goal of preparing talent through these pathways, and we're really looking at, we identified some key prioritized roles that their businesses said, this is what we need to fill. And then started to look at what would we do in our career awareness area. So we have different things that have been developed. One is called PEERS, Partnership for Excellent Educational Resources for STEM. And that actually brings professionals into elementary classrooms and middle school classrooms to start to expose and give real world hands-on opportunities within the classroom to apply the curriculum to the actual experience. When students have seen that and then they start to look at some of these different opportunities to explore, whether it be shadowing opportunities, getting out on summer jobs, some of those short-term employment opportunities, that gives them that idea of, yeah, this really is something I'm interested in. So as they're developing that 4-year plan, as they're trying to change that and morph that as they go through high school, it then leads them to the pathway that gets them those related training experiences that positions them perfectly to step into those technical skills that are involved in the apprenticeships. And then that really leads to that employment piece after high school and during high school that allows them to work through that. You'll see the second bullet there under the employment personal growth, the apprenticeship school. So one thing that's being developed right now, and we are starting to have the curriculum kind of morph into what we're looking for, is the opportunity for an apprentice post high school graduation to actually live on a college campus, have the college campus experience while they're working as an apprentice, taking some part-time community college classes, and therefore looking at, well, maybe my track ends at apprentice, maybe it goes to 2-year degree. And we've actually articulated some of our things like the engineering apprenticeship, our engineering assistant apprenticeship, and the early childhood education one. So there is an apprenticeship +2+2 program that shows them the pathway all the way through and the careers they can have at every scale or every level of upskilling. And so that's really what our goal is, to show students, here's the path. There's on-ramps and off-ramps at every step of the path. It's okay to stop at some point, pick it back up later, or maybe you finish your apprenticeship program and said, this is the job for me, and just stay there with that position. So trying to look at that different paths for different people. So if we go to the next one. So in order to make that happen, we have to develop several different groups, and we actually have these in place now. So if you look at the gray box at the top, that's the development board. So the level we're looking at that, we're bringing in CEOs, vice presidents, kind of corporate level people to say, we've got an idea for a new apprenticeship plan. Do you all want this or not? Or they can come to the schools and say, here's what we really need right now. Can you develop this? So that's a group that meets every quarter to try and take on those new ideas. And as you can see there, the representatives are people from the Career Academy, the different school districts, the 6 different school districts in the area, the colleges that are represented, and most importantly, the employers, to really be able to say, are we going to do those things or not? Each of the boxes below then represent different groups with specific purposes. And we'll take those one at a time here as we go through. So if we can advance to the next slide. So when that gray group decides that, yeah, we want to do this, then they hand off to the Career Pathways group. And this has been actually our apprenticeship group, but before then, they were the only group. So we meet with this group monthly. And that group then takes those ideas and starts to work through them to say, okay, we're going to take and set up the timeline. Have we actually had our shadowing opportunities? Have we conducted the business interviews? What does onboarding looks like? One of the most frequent ones, or recent ones they've taken on is strength testing. One of the things we found out with our welders is many of them have related training completed, but some of them aren't strong enough to actually be hired in the job. And so then we can put them onto a fitness plan to build strength so that they can pass that by the time they finish out their apprenticeship. Because the businesses have said, we'll bring them on as an apprentice without passing that, but before they are hired as a full-time employee post-apprenticeship, they have to be strong enough to do that. And so those are different things that we've been able to work through with regards to that. So each of our pathways are represented then in this. The one thing we have learned is within these pathways, sometimes you have early childhood and information technology groups sitting beside the welding group, and we're talking about completely different things. And so we've decided we're going to split this into 2. So the high school principal is going to take on a group that is a little bit more on the soft skill side. I'm going to take on a little bit more on the manufacturing side. And that allows us to not have people feel like they're wasting their time sitting at the meeting. Going on to the next one. There's a separate group that looks at classroom connections. So this is more of that feeder program in the 2nd through 8th grade. So as we start to develop out, as we talked about the peers program, this idea that we have to have students become interested in these things and be exposed to them. We're currently working at a group right now that's, we all have our 4-year plan in place, but sometimes you look at that 4-year plan and think, are we really accomplishing what that was intended to do in the first place? And so we are looking at a monthly thing that starts in the spring semester of the 7th grade year that would do the 4-year plan one stage at a time. That involves bringing in mentors, industry professionals, monthly exposures to different careers, and then assistance in developing that job board and that 4-year plan with detail that would then evolve through each year by continuing to bring those professionals in throughout the high school experience. And therefore causing it to not be a one-time experience, but a continually evolving plan that gets to the point of having that transition from high school into the workforce, training, and where they're going to go after that. So we can go to the next one. We also have the career experiences. These are a little bit more traditional things like the career fairs, those type of situations, but really having a separate group that does that, because what we find out is right now you end up with the same people at the table doing all the stuff. And before long, if they don't see that return on investment that was talked about earlier, they start to say, I don't really know this is worth it. This is not production time that we're actually having in our business. So we're trying to separate those out and have different groups to be able to represent it there. And then the last box in this group, and the final slide of this part, is a talent advancement. And this is really starting to take a look at, this doesn't stop when graduation occurs, but how are the businesses working with career academies, working with us so that they can actually access this? We just filed an update to our health careers apprenticeship this morning, to be actually exact. And there's now a part where all veterans are included in that. So they need to be able to access your apprenticeship opportunities. So some things are evolving in there. How do we pull those people in and actually make that a real opportunity for them? So when you think about all these things, we'll go to the next slide. It really leads to how do we feed the pipeline? So these are our 6 programs we're operating right now. The welding and the engineering assistant, were they're the ones that started this all off. What we started out as just strictly a CNA program, we have evolved into a patient care specialist, which involves CNA certification, but broadens the experience. So students actually get to experience 8 different areas of the healthcare career as they go through their CNA certification, and really grows that. The same thing with hospitality. Currently, that is a culinary arts one. We want to expand that because what we see in that is that the students we put into that at first saw themselves as the restaurant owner and manager, not as the backdoor chef. And so we want to give them both of those opportunities. It's, once again, I don't just want that entry-level career. I want to be the person who runs the place. Well, someday you'll get that opportunity, but there are steps you go through to get to that point. Early childhood education is one of those what we've been able to articulate with the community college and our local 4-year school here, so that you can actually begin as the apprentice, keep working as that apprentice as you go through the 2-year school, maybe living in that on-site environment of the college education while you're taking your community college classes, but then articulating all those so there's no wasted time and you can still finish your education degree in 4 years. The benefit to the employer is they have a really hard time finding employees. But if I can fill that pipeline as a student while I'm getting my education and we can continue to do that, then the employer is benefited by the fact that they're getting students who are continuing to train in the education world, who then continue to look at early childhood education as a career. And finally, information technology. And I'd love to talk to Jen a little bit about their software technician one, because that's something that we have not fleshed out on this one completely yet. But it's interesting, the students that you get who are interested in that program are a totally different group than the apprentices on the welding end. And so you can't treat everyone the same because they have different interests in different directions. And I think that's the biggest thing that we've learned is not to just think because I'm an apprentice, I'm an apprentice. I have different needs, desires, and wants based upon what I want to be an apprentice in. And so I think that's kind of become a big part of our learning through this situation. So those are really kind of the major things. And I guess that's the last slide. We have just a question slide here. But if you have any input on that, and we're always learning, so not only questions, but if you have ideas for us, I think that would be great as well. We just want to continue to partner with people and see how we can all move this forward.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Lowell, to show us your design that is occurring in the Pella region. Really great, interesting information to share with other individuals to how they could grow their registered apprenticeship program in high school and beyond. Now we're going to turn over to West Delaware County Community High School. I'm going to turn over to Dr. Kristen Recke along with Seth Harms.
Okay, hi everybody. Thanks for joining us. I've really enjoyed learning from the other presenters so far. And I think the biggest takeaway for me right now is that there are different pathways to achieve this apprenticeship program for our students. And regardless of the size of your school, you can make it successful. And there are different ways to approach it depending on your needs. So it really is available to everyone. I'm just going to introduce a little bit about how we got started at West Delaware and then turn it over to our instructor, who really is the expert in this. But I heard a couple of things that I thought really resonated from our other 2 presenters in terms of partnerships and needing a champion. So one of the things we think is really important to start with is making sure this is not just something that one individual has as an idea, but it's really part of our long-term process so that there's lots of involvement from instructors to leadership to our community. So if you want to advance, Amy. So this is just a part of our long-term vision at West Delaware. And so this is just an example of our vision statement that's part of everything we do. This is one component of it, but you can see that it's already embedded within our vision that we want to create learning experiences in a real-world context and develop and apply career readiness skills. And so the registered apprenticeship fits right in with our vision. And as a result of that, we have lots of support from leadership. I'm the superintendent, high school principal, our instructors, also our elementary and middle school staff who help feed into the program, because it's not a separate idea. It's a part of what we're hoping to accomplish as a district. You can go ahead, Amy. It's also a part of I saw a couple of different models of this, but the same kind of a concept that it's not a standalone type of program. It fits within a bigger system to prepare our students for whatever comes next for them after high school. So some of the same things the other speakers talked about in terms of just starting with career awareness and the types of things we do within that, to more career exploration and preparation, and then finally to fine tune it down to really career training and on the job experiences for people. So we try to have our apprenticeship as part of a bigger system where all of these things are happening and working together to funnel our students toward their final decision making in terms of their career. And so it's part of a bigger system, which I think is a really important part of promising practices. Go ahead, Amy. Thank you. So as you probably already know, a registered apprenticeship program is an earn while you learn while you earn type of a model, which really appeals to a lot of our students. It includes on-the-job training in local businesses and job-related instruction in the national skills standards, as well as progressive increases in the apprentices' skills and wages. We are a competency-based system in our apprenticeship programs here at West Delaware. And so our instructor is constantly working with our employers to help evaluate where each of our apprentices are in their skill set, helping them identify what they need to do to improve in specific areas. And they can improve through working with our instructor here at school or working directly in the industry. Sometimes our instructor goes to the industry and has those things come together. Other times we'll have our apprentices who are really advancing very quickly in their skill set, and their wages can quickly update to recognize their skill sets improving. And that's the benefit of having it be a competency-based versus an hours-based system. So before I turn it over to Seth, as I said a minute ago, a couple of words resonated with me from hearing the other speakers, and those were partnership and champion. The partnership with our local industries is absolutely critical. I think for anyone starting an apprenticeship program, if you don't have established strong relationships with the industries in your community, you really need to start by developing those relationships, because that's where the power of the apprenticeship comes in, is in that true partnership. So sometimes we forget that a partnership means that both entities really need to benefit from that. And apprenticeship is really a case where both are truly benefiting. So in our instance, our employers benefit because we have a very low unemployment rate in Delaware County, and they are constantly struggling to find employees. And this helps to develop an employee pipeline for our local industry that are people that are here, they're part of our community, and they likely will want to stay long term. So that benefits our employers. It also helps them because they develop a skilled workforce who is ready to come in and hit the ground running when they become full-time employees. So that benefits our employers. It benefits our school system because our instructor, while amazingly skilled, needs to continually keep up to date with what is the state of the art in the industry and update our equipment, update our instruction, update our techniques to meet what the employers are currently using on site. And so it benefits our instructor by having that connection. And most importantly, it benefits our students by having that real world experience at a job that's not a simulation. This is actually what they're being asked to do. And they're doing it at a time when they're still in school. So they have our instructor as a liaison to help them with navigating that transition from a student to an employee. So certainly there are skill-based things that they're learning from our instructor as well as from their work. There are also more soft skills, professional skill things that they are learning. So what do you do if you have a question about your paycheck? What do you do if you're not getting along with one of your coworkers? What do you do if you don't understand something your boss has asked you to do? And by having our instructor serve as a liaison, it really helps bridge that gap so that they're more likely to be successful long-term as employees. So that partnership is really, really important. The other word I mentioned that I'd heard was champion, and that's a really important part of our program too. Everybody in our district that's involved with this is really supportive of it. And so is our local industry and our Delaware County Economic Development Group. But we still need someone to take the lead. And that's our champion, and that is Seth Harms. And so he's constantly making sure that we're keeping this at the forefront of our attention, making sure that our apprentices have what they need, making sure there is a communication strategy between the industry and school. And we need that champion to lead all of that for us. And that is Seth Harms. And having a champion in your district, whether it's your instructor, somebody at your district leadership level, or someone else in the community, is really important to keep pushing this forward. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Seth, and he can give you some more information.
Well, thanks, Dr. Ricky. I appreciate the kind words, and thanks to Jen and Lowell too, or Lowell, sorry. Learning a lot with your programs. Actually, I don't know if you could see, but I snapped a couple pictures. I know I'll get this presentation sometime, but I wanted to kind of just take a look and process a little bit. So my name's Seth Harms, and I'm the welding instructor at West Delaware High School. When we started our apprenticeship program, I think the powerful thing with us is we had a strong business connection coming in. Quite a few of my students had gone, if they were interested in welding when they were 18, they had the opportunity to get out into the industry and begin their career as a welder. However, I just had a feeling that some of those students who had that passion early were maybe changing their passion, or we were losing them as time progressed. So when we had the opportunity to jump on the apprenticeship program, to me it was absolutely perfect. We had the chance now to have students at 16 to 17 in there learning skills, so when they are graduated from high school, well, they're, while in high school they're making great money and learning a valuable skill, and when they graduate from high school, they are set in a full-time position. So as you can see on this slide here, these are some of our sponsors that we have with us, our business partners. We do have an automotive apprenticeship as well. We do have a pre-apprenticeship program in masonry, and then of course our welding program. And we're continuously looking at new programs to update and bring in. So Amy, if you could switch to the next slide, please. So how does this all happen? And as time goes on, the great thing about being the instructor for this, as well as having the chance to work with these industries, is the opportunity for me to continuously learn. What can I do to involve more students, get more students involved, so we can fill those voids, that every industry is struggling with right now. Throughout the process, we do have a recruitment process where students who are taking my introduction courses, I kind of try to pick out those individuals who I see, have a chance, who have that strong work ethic, who really want to learn. Those kids that may need a little break here and there. We're not just always looking for the perfect student. We're some of those students we mold a little bit. So that's always an important step in this process. And I think on coming slides, I'll talk about it in a second, but making sure that the parents are involved as well, I think, is critical. When a student goes through the process, they will fill out an application very similar to the job. We have our own application that they fill out. I know Lowell and Jennifer talked about the meeting with the companies. We have a meeting around a table, not this year, last year, and hopefully next year. But we have a meeting and we get to go over those applications. It was quite a learning process for me to watch human resources go through applications, but they listen to my feedback and gives them an idea as to what they're coming into. We really try to get company tours. Once again, this year's we'll just talk about this like it wasn't this year, it was last year. How's that sound? Most of the time we give company tours. So we go out to all three industries and the students have the chance to see what they get to do. We have three amazing companies right here in Delaware County that build some pretty cool stuff. And that stuff is all over the world, essentially. So many of these kids don't understand that. So when they get to see some of those things and maybe watch the YouTube videos of what they do, it's pretty impressive, and they're pretty psyched to have that chance. From there, we give a formal interview. We also mock interview. I guess I skipped that one. We have a mock interview as well, getting the students prepared. I think that's very important. Some of these students have never sat in through an interview. Others have done a pretty rough interview, and this is an interview when those students go through it with the human resources from three industries as well as weld professionals. So they have to be on their game, and we give them a chance to learn before they have to go through the formal interview. And I think now that I'm looking at this, let's go ahead and switch to the next slide. I think I hit some of these on the next slides here. So I did get a little ahead of myself, and I apologize. So when we talk about the intro levels, I'm really focusing on the freshmen and the sophomores. At the time, we'll hit the juniors as well, but hopefully the juniors have got that information in. Now, I'm going to even back that up a little bit farther. In our middle school section, we do have a welding program that they get introduced to. So they hopefully get a little bit of excitement within that time as well. Outside the school walls, as an instructor, I was always very much against this, and I think Dr. Ricky would agree with me. I don't like to be in the spotlight. I don't like to do that stuff to bring recognition. However, I've learned now throughout my years that recognition really has an opportunity to get you places. So we really try to sell this anytime we have, we can talk in the community, things like that. I think it's really important. Newspaper articles, running it on the KCRG or any of those news stations, I think is really great for those kids. And some of these kids don't ever have that chance to experience some of that information, some of that limelight, I guess. One of the things I'd like to really bring in here, and actually I just thought about this last week, and so I threw it in the slideshow quick, was more of the parent meetings. We had conferences last week, and talking to a few students, parents who I deemed to be potential candidates, really didn't know as much about it as they thought. So my goal is to start having meetings in the spring with parents of interest, and really explaining to them what the process is. The process is out there, just sometimes they don't see it. So I want to be the one firsthand to talk with them and let them know the information and what it is. And we also used other classes to create promotional video as well. And Amy, if you go ahead and switch to the next slide. So here's my promotional video. I kind of contributed to the ShamWow guy. If you can see here, go ahead and we'll play it for you and you can see what you think.
Hey guys, Seth Arms here, West Delaware welding instructor. Are you a junior or a senior? Would you like to make a little bit of money and learn a career that is in high demand? Then the West Delaware Welding Apprenticeship is for you.
It teaches you to work with your teammates and other employees with the company. It teaches you pretty much that you need a good work ethic to get somewhere in life. The fact that I can put something together and weld it together and see that I actually built that and take pride in my work.
It is a relief to us when they can show up, because they can take on some of those projects that we need to get completed in that day. Where you don't necessarily have a lot of experience, it is a great opportunity to be coupled with a mentor to help grow and learn what is required in the industry.
I'd say a lot of it's soft skills. Going through the mock interview and the actual interview was very stressful, and I had actually never been through an actual interview process like that. I'd say maybe there's a little bit of fabrication involved. I work in a place where not all the parts to fit together most of the time.
If you would like more information on the West Delaware Welding Apprenticeship Program, please contact me via email or stop down to room 109 and we can discuss it further. Thank you. Okay, thanks, Amy. If you can go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. So that was a video we created to try to get some excitement, always looking for new ways. It was fun to have those students go through the industry. They got to fly the drone through it. They thought that was pretty awesome. And actually, the companies really enjoyed it too, because it was a little bit of free publicity for them. So back to talking about the mock interviews. This year was via Zoom. We did decide we still wanted to send some out, definitely, even amidst the COVID, and it worked out quite well. We were not able to have company tours, but what that did is that actually sparked us to think of ways to do it better. So working with Delaware County Economic Development, we are looking at potential virtual company tours, creating some video or some information about the companies, so we can show the students that in the future. The problem is some companies have some things that they don't want others to see. So you have to, that's what we're still working on. But hopefully if we can get that out in the future, let's hope we don't ever have this again. However, we've got the chance then to have. And then the formal interview this year was via Zoom as well. Actually worked much better than I anticipated. The companies were very involved. The students did very well with it. Most of the time, however, we are sitting around a big round table. One student comes in against 5 or 6 individuals. So go ahead and switch to the next slide, please, Amy. And here you've got, go ahead. This is just an apprentice with his mentor going on right now. Go ahead and switch to the next slide. I can't, hold on a second. I'm sorry, I got something stuck here. Oh, this is, hey, there we go. Regular check-ins, I'm sorry. Got my person set in the wrong place. So regular check-ins, what I try to do is I get out there every 45 days for sure, if not more. I'm constantly talking with the individuals. Most of the students I have in class already anyways, so I can discuss and talk and see how things are going. But I work very closely with the industries to make sure that that everything's going the way it needs to. Any questions that are involved, any concerns, situations like that. It's working out pretty fortunate right now as well. I'm actually working in the evenings. I'm helping classes out for Henderson's for new hires. So I get a much more informal discussion with this, about my apprentices all the time. And it's pretty neat to see. I think sometimes industries feel that high school students aren't capable. When you start to hear the feedback that I'm getting from your weld engineers and your mentors, and then I'm getting these new employees that are coming hired to this company. Some of these apprentices are actually essentially mentoring these new hires. So an 18-year-old might, or a 17-year-old might be mentoring a 26, 27, 30-year-old. So it's pretty neat. Next slide, please, Amy. And then with the evaluations, once again, I said every 45 days, it's very similar to the presentation or the slides that Jennifer sent out. We go through the competency base and see how everything's going. I think it's critical for you as an instructor to show your face out there as much as you can, and really let those workers know that you're really caring about those students as well as the employer itself. I think that might be it, but one more slide maybe. So we have, what we've had so far, I believe we have 14 welding apprentices, 7 that are currently out there. We have graduated 7. 1 is in the bullpen, just waiting. He will go out in February, I believe. We have 3 currently in the automotive apprenticeship program. So we're building those numbers up as well. As for hires this spring, I'm not 100% certain we're going to get hires in this spring, but we're going to go ahead and fire back hard in the fall. Next one, please. So what is it, some additional thoughts and what might help? What is important for employers to know? I think the biggest thing for the employers to know is if you're listening to this today, is it's important for you to talk with your school district. I think most school districts are very flexible in wanting to help the industry out, especially in that community. So ask them the questions that you're looking for and what you're needing. I think it's also important for an employer to understand a little patience with some of these students and these apprentices. They're coming into in my welding program, for instance, they're coming into a pretty rough, pretty crazy world sometimes. So there's going to be a few mistakes, and you have to be understanding of that. But I'll tell you this, that those kids, they work very hard. I should say apprentices, they work very hard to try to, impress. So the first step I'd say the employer should take is, once again, I'd talk to Greer, Greer Sisson, I'd talk to your school districts and start the process. It's been a remarkable journey for us. I've learned so much, and I just continue to say I can't wait to see what the future holds. My goal is 100, so I got a little ways to go, but that's what I'm shooting for. So I got a few years before I graduate or retire too, so I might make it.
Well, thank you so much, Seth and Dr. Ricky, for giving us some great examples of what's happening up in our Northeast Iowa section of the state. As you can tell, we have so many great examples of what's going on, and these are just 3 different high schools that are building registered apprenticeship programs, but we have so many more across the state that could be highlighted as best practices too. So please reach out to those local school districts that have created programs, or employers that have connected with high school programs to really learn from those experiences. Molly, what questions are we having coming in the chat?
We don't have any questions right now.
Perfect. Well, does any of the presenters have any questions that you want to ask the other presenters?
I'll ask Jen a question.
Okay.
As you think with your software one, your related training that's involved in that, what are the courses you have that lead into that?
We're somewhat finalizing those right now, but we use Project Lead the Way curriculum.
Okay.
So we're going to do kind of a mix of some of the computer science principles, computer science A, cybersecurity. Our partners are really interested in cloud-based instruction as well. And so we are exploring what other types of courses we may need to build or have in place as well. But we actually meet tomorrow with them, and hopefully we'll have this kind of locked down. They're currently talking to their leadership to see if it's even a possibility, if we can move forward with it. But I'd be happy to send you the meeting invite if you wanted to join and listen in. You'd be welcome to. Otherwise, I can follow up and send you, kind of what we end up landing on afterwards.
Okay, that'd be interesting. Yeah. We actually ran a program this summer where they went to the college and did a 2-week intensive course from the college before they went off into the workforce. But we want to grow that, so I'm just kind of looking for what others are doing there now.
Awesome. See, even our best practices, schools always lean out to others to get information. So like I said before, really lean on other programs to hear how and what they're doing to help you expand. So any other questions before we wrap up?
I'd have one for Lowell. So
Okay.
the Work Smart connector, that's like something that you've created in-house. Is that the whole system?
It is, but it's made to replicate. So we think it's a pattern that you could easily pick up and take somewhere else.
Cool. That was really, I like the setup. We keep having in Perkins, you have your 2 advisory meetings every year that are required for your different programs. And sometimes it's just so check the box. And that's such a strategic way to engage your partners and make them feel valued and actually move everything forward versus here's our standards, here's our assessments, do you approve? So I love that model. I would love to learn more about that and bring pieces of that to Davenport.
We would really love to see Perkins go ahead and accept our committees as that, because I really don't see a reason to have a separate committee.
Perfect. Well, we love that Registered Apprenticeship is growing into all work-based learning initiatives and other areas within Department of Education is too, because honestly, it's a connection between a lot of different entities and parties. So to To wrap up our high school webinar series, we want to thank everyone that has been a participant, either in attending or a presenter. This webinar series could not have been more thoughtful and provoking from all the presenters that have been involved. All previously taped webinars will be posted by December 31st to our Earn and Learn iowa.gov/educator webpage. It will also be on futurereadyiowa.gov by December 31st as well. That's going to be the presentations and the taped recordings of each of the webinar series that we've had. And 2021 will bring additional learning opportunities for businesses in high school. So please stay tuned as we do outreach on new webinar series that will be coming out next year. We hope everyone has a happy holiday and stay safe and well. And we hope that 2021 brings more initiatives and bigger and brighter opportunities for high school registered apprenticeship and work-based learning. So thank you again for joining today, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.